Hey y'all, let me tell you about these lemon pepper Old Bay wings that we gonna make today. They're gonna be so good, drizzled in some honey butter. We also got a cheesy corn pudding, a delicious homemade sweet potato cornbread, and we have some gumbo style cabbage with a little collard greens and okra mix in there. Y'all, this meal is top notch. And if you making this for your family, honey, they ought to be giving you an award, okay? Now, I am going to start with this cheesy corn pudding. I am putting in evaporated milk, butter, sugar. I have some sour cream that's going to make it really moist. I'm also throwing in 3 eggs, and I'm going to whisk this really well. We want to make sure we break up those yolks, especially before we add in our flour, which we're definitely going to have to beat that well because we do not want any lumps. And this flour is going to help give it a little thickness. I'm also going to add in some Creole seasoning and some baking powder and a little bit of pepper just to give it a nice flavor. I'm putting in 3 tablespoons of minced onion. Now, the habanero that I'm putting here is not going to make it spicy. It's going to add a nice flavor, so definitely add that. And the red bell pepper is going to give it a lot of color. I'm then going to add 3 cups of corn. Now, this is just drained canned corn, but you could also use frozen. That would be totally fine. And I'm using 1.5 cups of mixed cheese. So I have here some sharp cheddar cheese, as well as a habanero pepper jack and a little bit of Munster. Basically, I just took whatever cheese was in my refrigerator and I chopped it up and I put it in here. So you can use whatever blend that you would like. I'm then going to spray a baking dish and I am going to put this in there and I'm going to cook this at 350 for about 45 to 50 minutes. It's really going to depend on the size baking dish you use. If you use a larger pan, it's going to take less time, but that middle really has to be set. Now, a lot of people ask me, they see my cast iron skillet in the oven. They say, why why Mabel down there? Okay, Mabel live in the oven, y'all. Y'all trying to evict her, but that's where she be at all the time, okay? Now, as you can see, this cheesy corn pudding is really bubbly and golden brown. This has so much flavor, and the little colors from the pepper just make this really nice. I allowed this to sit for about 5 minutes before cutting into it, and this is so good. Let me know if you're going to try this recipe. I really love greens, especially in the winter. This is their season, and I have these greens from my garden. And so I am going to put in some olive oil and 1 cup of smoked sausage. I'm also going to add a piece of fat back, okay? But if you don't do the piggly wiggly, you can just leave that out, okay? I'm going to saute this until it is browned. Then I'm going to put in 1/2 of a red bell pepper and 1 onion. This onion is really going to break down and really make a nice rich sauce at the bottom. So that's why we're putting in so much onion. I'm then going to put in 3 cloves of garlic, 1/2 tablespoon of chicken bouillon and Creole seasoning, 1 teaspoon of onion, and 1 teaspoon of brown sugar. I'm going to toast this for about 30 seconds before I put in my smoked turkey wing and a little bit of apple cider vinegar to balance the flavor. I like to add boiling water so that, you keep the temperature hot in the pan, and I am going to simmer this turkey wing for about 30 to 45 minutes. I want it to be soft. Now, you guys know I will pressure cook this stuff in a minute, but I want to show you guys how to do it if you don't have a pressure cooker, okay? So now you can see a lot of those onions have broken down, and baby, that's what you want, okay? Because it's caramelized, it's had some flavor. It's going to be so good. And then I'm going to put in about 1.5 cups of whole okra. The frozen whole okra is really good quality. And then I'm adding in a mixture of kale and cabbage. And I'm also going to put in about 1 cup of tomatoes. You could also use 1/2 can of tomatoes and a small cabbage that I have chopped up. Okay, these tomatoes are actually from the summer. I froze them and now I'm using them. They're going to add a nice sweetness. I'm then going to put in a little bit more boiling water. I'm going to cover this and I'm going to let this simmer for about 35 minutes. I don't want it too soft. I actually like a little bit of crunch on them. But you can simmer this as long as you want. The okra has broken down a bit. The tomatoes have released their flavor. I think this is a little bit healthy. I mean, it got a little fat back in it, but who ain't got a little fat on the back? Okay, come on now. Here we got the greens. We got the smoked turkey. Let me know if you're going to try this recipe. This was so good. Now, I am going to butterfly this chicken for our lemon pepper Old Bay fried chicken. Okay, now I've been seeing this going around on the internet for a while. And apparently when you butterfly it, you get more crispiness, in your chicken because there's so much breading. So all I did was take my knife and I cut it down the middle, and then I just trimmed the sides down a bit, exposing the bone. And it is going to be nice and butterfly. Now, one thing I did find when doing this is that you get more seasoning on your chicken. Okay, so give this a try. Plus, drumsticks are still pretty affordable. I'm going to use all of these seasonings, and I'm going to guesstimate the measurements. Now, I'm going to tell you what I measured, but y'all know I'm lying a little bit, okay? I'm going to put about half of a teaspoon of each seasoning, but I'm going to use about a fourth of a teaspoon of the MSG. Now, I'm only using 5 drumsticks, so of course you should change the measurements based on how much chicken you're making. Now, what really sets it off is this Old Bay hot sauce, in my opinion. But if you can't get this, regular hot sauce will work. I'm going to mix this up, and I'm going to let this marinate to the side at room temperature for about 30 minutes because we don't want no cold meat going in no hot oil. Okay, that's not going to work out. And as you can see, the seasonings is all up in there. So it's a pretty nice way to fry some chicken, if you ask me. Okay. I am putting in 1.5 cups of self-rising flour, and I'm adding the same seasonings again, about a half a teaspoon, but I'm going to put in some salt this time, and I'm going to mix this all together. Now, I was not trying to do no wet batter bowl and no dry batter bowl, so I just threw about a tablespoon of mustard, about a tablespoon of cold water, and about a tablespoon of flour, and I mix this together to basically form the wet paste. I don't know if this is lazy or what, but I really was not trying to do 2 separate bowls, so this really worked out well for me. Have you guys ever made butterfly fried chicken before? And if you have, how did it turn out for you? Because when I tried this, I just felt like it was so crunchy and juicy, and it actually cooked faster. So that was a big plus in my opinion. So I for sure would try this again. Now, when you dredge your chicken, you want to make sure that you knock off any pieces that get on your fingers, and you want to press them into the chicken. They're going to add some extra crunchiness to your fried chicken, and then you're going to place it aside on a tray and just let it sit for about 5 minutes while you heat up your oil. Now that all my chicken is ready, we are ready to fry. Now this oil is going to look a little dark because this is reused oil. Honey, the way these oil prices built, okay, we gonna be using that oil definitely more than once, okay? You'll also see that's why my chicken comes out quite brown. That happens a lot when you reuse oil, okay? So this is peanut oil, and I just fried this for about 7 minutes, okay? It cooks really quickly. Then I'm going to place this to the side on a rack that has a baking sheet under it for the oil to just drip and drain. Y'all, you can see the crunch. You can hear the crunch. I'm going to dress this with some honey butter right before I serve it, and you are good to go. Now, let's talk about this sweet potato cornbread. We're going to do this from scratch today, and I had a very large sweet potato. My dad gave me a sweet potato that was like the size of a football, and I peeled it and I chopped it up and I just boiled it in water. It took about 25 minutes until it was soft. Then I'm going to mash it with my potato masher. I do typically like to use roasted sweet potato, but there was no way I was going to wait for a potato that big to cook in my oven. It would just took too long. I'm then going to add a cup of flour, 1.5 cups of cornmeal, a tablespoon of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 tablespoon of cinnamon, as well as 1/2 cup of brown sugar and 1/2 cup of white sugar. I'm going to mix this together until it is well combined. And then I am going to go in with 3/4 cup of buttermilk. This was at room temperature, as well as 1/2 cup of sour cream. The sour cream is going to really set it off. Now, you don't need a lot of butter because the sweet potato is going to add a lot of moisture, okay? I have measured out 1.5 cups of those mashed sweet potatoes. A lot of people will just say put in 1 medium sweet potato or 2 sweet potatoes. That is not accurate enough. Okay, you do need to measure it out. You're going to mix this together until it is nice and thick, baby. It's going to be thick, and it may actually have a few lumps, but that is okay because you can't really get that sweet potato perfectly smooth. I have prepared my cast iron skillet, y'all know Sister Mabel, with about 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I actually did not preheat the cast iron skillet. I tend to find that the sweet potato cornbread tends to get a nice crust regardless if I heat up the cast iron skillet or not. Okay, so I don't think it's a must, all right? I am going to smooth out the batter, and then I'm going to bake this at 425 for about 23 to 25 minutes. You really want to watch it so that it doesn't get too brown. But when a toothpick inserted comes out clean, you know you're good to go. And then I'm just going to brush this with some honey butter. I have about a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of honey, and I just brush it on there. Will you look at that? It's just going to get all delicious and sink all down into the cornbread. And this is even better the next day. And don't warm it up with a little bit of coffee. Oh my gosh. Y'all, this is going to hit. Let me know if you are going to try this recipe. Now, right before serving, I brushed my lemon pepper Old Bay wings with a little bit of honey butter as well. That just really balances out the flavors on that fried chicken. I just fully love this meal. You guys know that I love you and Jesus loves you, and God bless you for supporting this channel. I'll see you next time, and goodbye.